Obviously, it is Super Bowl weekend. We have a heavyweight matchup in the Super Bowl this year. 16-3 Philadelphia, 16-3 Kansas City. You got the MVP and Patrick Mahomes, and you've got a quarterback on the other side and Jalen Hurts, who was second place in the MVP voting. Heavyweight battle between the two. Right now, Philly is a 1.5 point favorite. It is nearly a pick 'em at this point. Over under is 51. So they're kind of expecting, somewhat of a lower scoring ish type game, which I could definitely see. On offense, they're damn near even. You got the Chiefs, who have averaged 29.2 points a game. You've got the Eagles that have averaged 28.1. On defense is where there's a little bit, of a difference between the two. Chiefs have allowed about 20, Eagles about 7. So Eagles have a better defense. Chiefs have a better offense. Something's got to give. What are your thoughts on this matchup, man? It's going to be a really, really good matchup tomorrow night.
Yeah, so honestly, I mean, we've seen some Super Bowl matchups that have been really underwhelming. When I think of a matchup such as that, I think of that Rams versus Patriots. That was really There's been a lot of underwhelming Super Bowls in the last 6 years, but I think that this is going to be one of the most evenly matched Super Bowls we've seen. That Eagles defense is really a bend don't break defense. They really, really, they have their moments, but they really don't break. You'll see them bend, you won't see them break. So that Eagles defense, I really think is going to do a good job of containing Patrick Mahomes. And that's a hard thing to do because he can do so many different things on the field. And he is absolutely by far the best player in the NFL at the moment. I mean, he has made that very clear. I know that there's many different positions, but definitely quarterback. And I would say player overall, Patrick Mahomes is that guy. So he's going to be hard to contain, but this Eagles defense is the defense that I think can do it. But when we talk about the Chiefs defense, they're not quite as impressive or well versed as this Eagles defense, but that Chiefs defense is really aggressive. That's the thing that this Chiefs defense has a lot of that can go for them against that Eagles offense is aggression. They're very aggressive. So I think it's going to be pretty evenly matched on both sides of the ball for both teams. I have this being a pretty high scoring game. I have it being a higher scoring ball game where they're going punch for punch until the end. And I've got the Eagles coming out on top. I think that they really have what it takes to win. I think that they honestly are that team this season. So the Chiefs are a fantastic team. And again, Patrick Mahomes, best player in the NFL, and he's going to put on a show even if the Chiefs lose. But I just think this Eagles defense will be able to contain him. And I also think that Eagles offense is going to show up prepared because they have some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. They have a very deep, position with that wide receiver. They've got quite a few talented men that can catch the ball, and they've got really, I mean, running back, not as much, still a great position. But again, the Chiefs offense as a whole is probably viewed as better, but I think this Eagles offense is going to show up more prepared for this game.
Yeah, I agree. The Eagles obviously have a very, very, they're very good on both sides of the ball. They've got really good wide receivers. Um, it's gonna be a higher scoring game. I have a feeling. I think Patrick Mahomes is gonna get what's his. I think Jalen Hurts is gonna get what's his. The thing that's gonna be interesting though, um, the Chiefs are going to be very aggressive in containing Jalen Hurts. If they could put Jalen Hurts in some uncomfortable situations, the Chiefs have one of the best secondaries in all of the NFL. They can force turnovers. So that'll be an interesting factor in the game is if they can get Jalen Hurts uncomfortable because he has not been in a moment like this before. Everything can fall out from underneath the Eagles if they're not careful. the Chiefs don't have as good of a defense, because they're more aggressive, but if that aggressiveness can, get Jalen Hurts uncomfortable, I think the Chiefs will look pretty good in this game.
And I'm with you. And people forget when we throw back to Patrick Mahomes' first Super Bowl, it was a very similar situation. That 49ers team was up and they looked like they were that team, but you cannot ever count Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs out. You just can't. Even though it's different players and not the exact same roster, a lot of the players are similar and they've been in this moment. And even if not, Patrick Mahomes has been in this moment and he's ready to lead them. So I just think that you can never count the Chiefs out. If the Eagles are asleep and if the Eagles take their foot off the gas like that 49ers team did, Patrick Mahomes will eat that up, and just the offense will make that push like they did in that game. So as long as that defense can follow suit and at least get those stops, this Chiefs team could really make a push for it. But when we look at the Chiefs cornerbacks, they've got a really young cornerback position. That's a really young position for them. And I think in my opinion, the reason that this Eagles offense outmatches that defense, it's not that those cornerbacks aren't talented, but I just think that these receivers for this Eagles team are prepared. And again, Smith is not old. I mean, he's within his first 4 years of his career. He's not a vet by any means, but he has that experience. He's getting it down. He's been in these situations because he was he played for Alabama. He played for the team that he's been in these positions before. He already gets that. So a lot of these players on this Eagles team, I just think, are more prepared and well-versed for this position. But again, the Chiefs, you cannot sleep on them. You cannot sleep on them before the game or during the game. You just can't do that, unfortunately. So I'm just hoping that this Eagles team, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm going for the Eagles 100%. I am absolutely going against the Chiefs. And that's not why I'm picking them to lose. I truly think that the Eagles will win. But I just think that this Chiefs team still, like we've both alluded to, you cannot sleep on them because they will eat that up and they will make a push.
I agree. My score prediction for this game, it's going to be higher scoring. I've got the Chiefs 41, the Eagles 28. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think it's going to be back and forth for the first little bit. But I think toward the end, the Chiefs get a couple of key turnovers and they're able to turn this game around and kind of flip it on its head, so to speak. And they pull away late because Patrick Mahomes is very experienced in this situation.
Absolutely.
If they can't contain Mahomes and what he does, the Eagles are going to be in some serious trouble, especially if he can start finding Travis Kelce, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They've got good weapons on the offensive side. So if they can't contain Mahomes and Mahomes has an abundance amount of time, look out.
That is very true. I mean, what you said, he is very dangerous. He's arguably the most dangerous, not even arguably anymore. I mean, he is the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL, and you cannot give him any room because once he gets that, even if it's just this much room, he'll run away with that. So I do think that is a very good prediction. I've got it being 35-28. Eagles come away with that late touchdown. Originally, I think I said it was going to go into overtime, or at least I said it was going to be a little higher scoring, but I think it is going to be right around that 35-28 mark. I think the Eagles are going to score a really late touchdown. Again, that is a team that has a lot of members of that offense that have been in big games before, whether that be college or pro. I think that they are going to take that and they're going to live in that moment and they're going to pull away with one final scoring drive and win 35-28. But we could be looking at a game that's way different. I mean, again, we've seen Super Bowls like that Rams-Patriots game. I thought that game was going to be way higher scoring. So we could see a game, I hope it's not like that, but we could see a really low scoring defensive battle because like we both said, both defenses are really talented. So maybe we see a defensive battle, but I think our predictions will be pretty close to accurate because I think that these offenses are going to both show up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's obvious we could get a lower scoring game like that. I don't envision it being that low a scoring. I wouldn't put my money on it. Because both offenses are pretty electric. But we're going to have to see tomorrow night. And we'll see if our predictions are close or if we're not close at all, obviously, we'll talk about more about the Super Bowl next week. In our next episode, we'll recap it. Give us or give you guys our thoughts, and we'll go from there. Another big thing in the NFL happened recently. Sean Payton is going to be the new Broncos head coach. I don't know what to quite think about it. Like, the Broncos upper management, the head coaching position was the least of their worries. Sean Payton's a good pickup, but he hasn't won any play at any place without Drew Brees. The question is, can he help Russell Wilson out because the Broncos are stuck with him for the long haul? Can the upper management do a good job in getting him more weapons? That I don't know. Again, it's a really good pickup. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl. He has led the Saints to the playoffs numerous times. But I still don't know what to really think about it. Because I don't know if firing a coach after his first year was the right idea. What are your thoughts on this Sean Payton situation in Denver? Because I don't know if it was the entire issue.
And again, I'm with you, and I don't think it was the entire issue, but I do think that if you are looking for a coach to try to turn your program around and to try to go in the right direction with that quarterback who you thought might be that guy, Sean Payton is that guy, because within his time coaching the Saints, in his many years on that coaching for that staff, he only had 4 seasons where he had losing seasons, and even those losing seasons were not under 7-win seasons. So again, imagine a coach being like, oh, I've got 7 wins. That's his worst, is a 7-win season. That's not that bad. Sean, and then we look at other seasons where he's winning the Super Bowl or getting deep in the playoffs. Like, Sean Payton is a very successful coach, but like you said, we've only really seen him be successful with Brees, with that Saints team. And for the most part, they kept a lot of those pieces throughout their success. So it does draw up the question, will it work? This is what I'm going to say. Like you said, I don't think it was the entire problem in Denver. I don't think that Russell Wilson is the correct guy for that job. I'm starting to think that he wasn't the problem in he was the problem in Seattle. Wasn't the problem. And I won't say he was the problem, but there were problems surrounding him in Seattle, and it wasn't Seattle like it kind of seemed in the first place. So I just think that, no disrespect to him, but I don't think he is the right quarterback for that team. But I will say this: you're putting together a veteran quarterback who has Super Bowl experience and a veteran coach who has Super Bowl experience. That usually ends up working out. I will say that does give, I don't want to say give me some hope, because I'm not a Broncos fan. So I hope it doesn't work out, but it probably will. I'm foreseeing that it will at least be a step in the right direction. Putting a quarterback and a coach that have both been to Super Bowls, won Super Bowls, that is a really big factor. So I do think that they are matching that up correctly, but I don't think that's the entire problem. Denver has to make other moves if they actually want to be a team that wins more than 7 games this next season, or even 5 games this next season.
Yeah, anything like that would be a pretty good improvement. I'm not expecting the Broncos to make a playoff push in year 1, although they very well could. Obviously there's a long way to go until next season, but they need to do something in terms of, giving Russell Wilson more weapons, a better offensive line to help protect him, put him in a better situation. If they don't do that, they're going to find themselves in the same spot that they did this year. And it's not going to be pretty. Because guess what? You're going to have a lot of Denver fans calling for Sean Payton's head, even though it's not really his fault. No coach, in my opinion, should be fired after their first season. Because one season is not enough to establish whatever culture you need. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know what is going on with the Broncos upper management, but it's not a good culture.
Not at all. No, I mean, it seems like that organization sold their soul for their last championship, because ever since then things have been going terrible. It's kind of like they're like, we just want one more championship and then we never want to win again, because that is how it seems. That team went from winning with Peyton Manning to whatever the heck they are now. It does not make sense to me. And again, I'm a Raiders fan and I do not care for the Broncos in the slightest, but I don't enjoy it. Now, unfortunately, the Raiders haven't been much better. So still those rivalries have been really close. You know, there's not one team pulling away, and it's definitely not the Broncos, but unfortunately it's not the Raiders either. But the Broncos are a team that you expect to be better, but they went from, again, winning that championship, making it to the mountain, to jumping off and falling all the way to the bottom. They went from here to there within a matter of a year. So, you know, the team just kind of fell apart, and they've not really found the right way to build back up. They've gone through so many quarterbacks. They tried young quarterbacks, they tried vets. It didn't work. They brought Wilson, they brought Wilson in, and I will admit, it did make sense a little bit. I didn't make sense for how much they brought in or how many years, but it did make sense that they bring him in. It did make sense that they try to go for a quarterback, a star quarterback, if you will, to try to help that organization, because they did that with Manning. Now, I'm not going to compare Wilson to Manning, because that's just not a comparison, but they have done that. So I think they're trying to follow the blueprint that made them successful before and made them gain that push. And Peyton is a big part of that. I do think that Sean Payton is going to help that team's culture, and he's going to help that organization's culture as a whole, because he does know what it takes. But they're not going to be a playoff team in their first year, I don't think. I think that they're going to win. I do think they're going to win 6 or 7 games, but I don't think they're going to go much above that. But even if they can win 7 games next year, that is a big boost for them, especially for where they've been. But it could also go the other way. Maybe they don't improve, and then we're looking at more than just the coach, which is what we should be doing right now anyway. But unfortunately, I think that big coaching signing has a bunch of Broncos fans and a bunch of, sports analysts just kind of, salivating over that and not looking at all the other things the Broncos are lacking.
Yeah. I think the hiring of Sean Payton puts him in a better spot. Obviously we'll see, and we'll talk more as we get closer to the season as far as the Broncos situation. As we all know, the NFL awards just happened. Your MVP is Mahomes. Not surprising. Coach of the year was Brian Dobell from the Giants. There were a lot of very worthy recipients this year. Defensive player of the year was Nick Bosa from the 49ers. Rookie of the year on offense, Garrett Wilson. He had a really good year. Both Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, in their first year in the NFL, they're the first 2 rookies in NFL history to have over 1,000 yards in their first season. Really good. Either one of them could have won Rookie of the Year. What are your thoughts on these rewards, man? I think they did pretty well in selecting these, recipients, and it was a very competitive slate of players that could have, very well gotten these awards as well.
And it always is very close. Like, there's always a lot of players that you can look at and a lot of coaches, and you can say maybe they should have been given that nod. But there's just so much talent. That is what it comes down to. There's so much talent in this league, and there's so many talented players and coaches and just members of the organization as a whole. But honestly, something the pick that I agree with the most is Coach of the Year, because this guy brought a team that was from 4-13. People forget that this team was 4-13 the season before this last one, and then they were in the playoffs this season. So, and they looked like a team that are maybe 1 or 2 years or a couple of pieces off from making a real deep push and maybe getting the Giants back to a Super Bowl. So that was a quick turnaround. You don't do that if you're not a coaching mastermind. So that is a huge, I mean, that to me is the biggest one that I agree with. And then right behind that, you've got to give the nod, of course, to Patrick Mahomes. Again, Jalen Hurts, like we've talked about multiple times, very talented. The other quarterback, in the Super Bowl, which is huge. And the fact that the winner and the runner up for the MVP are going head to head, that's awesome. So that's super cool. But Mahomes has won that one by a mile for what he did, and to continue the greatness of that Chiefs team even after losing and rearranging pieces is huge. And if anything, that Chiefs team is more dangerous. They look more dangerous. He is building a dynasty. He really is. They are going to get some key pieces in the offseason in the next few years. They're going to build that team, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. So Patrick Mahomes is a no-brainer. And then again, I've got to give one more shout out, the Geno Smith comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
That is right behind those other two. That was super deserved, because he has not really ever been given too much, given a chance. He's been that backup his whole career pretty much. And a lot of players make a living being the backup, or being the backup and then maybe playing a couple games and kind of, rotating around. We've seen some quarterbacks go from starting to backup, and it's kind of like, they're on that merry-go-round, and it just changes depending on the team in the season. It's not, but the fact that he took that Seahawks team that even I thought, okay, I didn't think that it was all, Wilson, but I was like, with Wilson gone, it's going to be hard for them to win, because you lose that veteran quarterback who's been with you since you got so successful. That's a big blow to a team. So even if it wasn't Wilson for all the success, it's still going to affect them. But Geno Smith came in and made that team greater, and they fought, and they were a fun team to watch. They got destroyed in the playoffs, but they will be back. They will build a team. That's another team with a lot of young talent, and I think that they will attract a lot of vets in the off seasons to come. So I think that honestly, there's a lot of great picks. This was one of my favorite years of NFL awards. There's not any that I can disagree with at all.
Yeah, I agree. All the people that, all the people that deserve to won. Obviously, there are people that deserve behind them, but the most deserving players ended up coming out on top of these rewards. It definitely makes for an interesting talking point. So yeah, it was all really close. Everybody's well deserving of what they got. So kind of, transitioning away from NFL awards. Tom Brady, was it a week or two ago? He took a video of himself and he was talking. He is retiring yet again, but I do think he is for sure retiring this time. The reason I don't think he retired last year is the media broke the news first before he was able to say anything. So it wasn't really on Brady's terms. He came back, played another season, led the Buccaneers to the playoffs, even though they had a bad record. And now it's his time. He did it on his terms this time. The media didn't break it first. It was him that broke it first. I honestly think that he was being truthful. I think he was for sure that he was gonna retire. I mean, he's got 7 rings. He had a wonderful career. He's one of the better quarterbacks to ever play the game in terms of rings. I think he was being truthful. What are your thoughts?
So I'll start by saying this. I would have loved if he would have added one more reign as a Raider. I just we talked about this last episode, and I honestly thought that he was potentially going to be a Raider. Again, 49ers were out there, there were Dolphins, there were a couple of teams. But when this news broke, he's done. He's very much done. I think that there's a lot of I think that there were some unresolved things last season and a lot of things that played into him deciding to come back and give it one more go. But I think even throughout the season, I think he knew, it's kind of like Brett Favre. I'm not going to compare the two because I think Tom Brady is a far better quarterback. But Brett Favre, his last, season, like you could tell even throughout the season, he knew that it was done. He knew that that was probably the end. And you can just kind of see in their demeanor. And Tom Brady still, again, they didn't have a great season, but he went back to the playoffs. You can't say he went back and missed the playoffs because he came back and made the playoffs and got stomped. The game was hyped. I was super excited for that Bucks Cowboys game. I'm like, it's a rematch from the beginning of the season, blah, blah, blah. But no, it was not even close to that. The Cowboys surprisingly had a good game. But again, we know what happened as it always does after that. They can't ever make it back to the Super Bowl. I think that's another team that sold it all for some championships. And now they're done because I don't think we'll ever see them back in the Super Bowl. Fingers crossed, at least. But no, I think Tom Brady's definitely done. We're not going to see him make some kind of comeback. The one thing I would say is if he made a comeback, he would wait. He wouldn't come back this season. But he's not going to come back in another year because wouldn't he be what, 47 or 48 if he came back in like 2 years? There's no way he would do that. But my only way I can see him even like teasing a comeback would be if he took an entire season, but I think he's done, and I think it's for the best. I think that he still was Tom Brady this last season, but it just wasn't the same entirely. You could tell that it wasn't the same, and I think that's probably why he decided it was time to be done. On top of what you said with the media breaking it, and I think he wanted to be completely on his own terms, I also think that he could tell that it was time to be done physically and mentally. Mentally, it's huge. I mean, we talk about the physical side all the time, but the mental side, especially of football and the aggressiveness of that sport, I think that it was probably mental and physical equal.
I agree. You can kind of tell in his video he was mentally ready. He wants to be able to focus on his family. He wanted to go watch his kids grow up. Obviously, when you're in the NFL, you don't get a whole lot of time to do that because you're pretty much working all year long to try and prepare for that next season. If he stays retired, he does not have to worry about that. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer next year. He can sleep well with his 7 rings and making it to 10 Super Bowls. I'm not a Brady fan by any means, but I'm not going to knock him on his performance in big and key moments. He was really good when he needed to be. Hence why he has 7 rings. He is definitely going to be missed among, fans. It's going to be different not seeing him play. But he inked a huge deal with Fox to be a commentator. Some like $337 million a year, something like that, which is ridiculous. But he's still going to be involved with football. It's just going to be in a different light.
And that's going to be awesome to see. I think he's going to do great at that. I think he's going to really succeed. And I think that it'll be really enjoyable seeing that. So I think that'll be a whole new light to that, and it'll give him a whole new look. And I think we'll see a whole different side of him. I wouldn't be shocked if he does other things with TV or movies or something. I don't think he'll be a full-on actor, but I just wouldn't be shocked if he expands what he does because he's the GOAT. He can do anything he wants. He can do anything. I mean, he has his own brands. Like he really can do just about anything probably and be successful. So I do see him heavily enjoying retirement, and I think that it's I think that it's what's best. It will be really different not seeing him, like you said. I really wanted to see him play in person, but that obviously never happened. But still, it's great to see. Great career, plenty of championships, plenty of Super Bowls. There's never going to be another quarterback like him.
I agree. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Although if Mahomes gets this Super Bowl, that'll put him at 2 already, and he's only 28.
He's on
Or
the path. He's on
he's
the potential
he's
path.
on the path. If the Chiefs can keep up their production and everything, Mahomes could very well be in the consideration for best quarterback to ever play the game toward the end of his career. He's well on that path right now.
Without a doubt.
But obviously, we'll talk more NFL as the year goes on. Obviously, there's going to be some off-season news. Let's kind of transition to a little bit of the NBA, and I'm going to let you talk. You obviously follow the NBA a lot closer than I do, but I'm just going to lead it up with this. The trade deadline was here. There were a lot of big moves made. Give us your thoughts on the biggest moves that were made this trade deadline.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, there were quite a few moves that were made. Big moves. One of the craziest trade deadlines I think we've seen in a while. Definitely one of the craziest. Right off the bat, the Suns landed Kevin Durant in a 4-team deal, which is just insane. They got TJ Warren and Kevin Durant. The Nets got Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, Juan Pablo Villa, and then a handful of draft picks. I mean, just Bucks got Jay Crowder, Pacers got George Hill, Serge Ibaka, just huge players. It's almost like a lot of these teams were not rebuilding in the middle of the season, but building up and juicing up in the middle of the season. And a lot of these rosters are going to be really juiced. And then, of course, Kyrie Irving going to the Mavs. Kyrie Irving was the start of all this madness. He requested a trade, and this was, I think, 3 or 4 days out of the deadline. He requested that trade, and then it just was off to the races. But Kevin Durant to the Suns was big, and then getting TJ Warren back, people forget he was a Sun before. That is also big. And then looking at my Los Angeles Lakers, got to shout them out. I think they might play today. I'm not sure. They're probably going to lose. It doesn't really matter, honestly. But I think that they made out pretty well. Russell Westbrook, as he's been called by a lot of people, analysts, fans. I mean, that was the nickname he got. I will say he had better numbers this season, but Russell Westbrook finally built up enough trade value for us to kind of move on from him, and it was time. I mean, everyone knew it was time, including Russell Westbrook. So we made a deal, and we got D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, and Mikal Bridges, and we sent the Jazz Russell Westbrook, Juan Toscano Anderson, 1 first-round pick, and I believe 2027, and Damian Jones. So we traded those players, and then in a couple other Lakers trades, Mo Bamba for Patrick Beverly. It's great to juice up that center position. We really needed that. So that was a good trade. And then Thomas Bryant, one that I was not super happy about. Thomas Bryant was apparently requested trade. It didn't officially break, but apparently he privately requested trade, and we traded him. And I don't remember what piece we got back for him, but we got another shooting guard back for him. So the Lakers added a lot of 3 shooting and a lot more depth to their guard position, which is really big. So, those are some of the bigger moves. But what are your thoughts on the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving trades specifically? What do you think the future is looking like for the Suns now that they have KD? Do you think that if everyone stays healthy, they could make a championship run? They are currently sitting 5th in the West. What are your thoughts on that?
I very well think that if KD stays healthy, the Suns are going to be very dangerous. They can make a deep push toward the postseason. They're already sitting pretty. They're already in the playoffs at this moment. But I think adding a piece like KD is huge, because you're adding a big man who can shoot the ball. And, the Suns kind of needed that piece. Now they got him. Kevin Durant is arguably one of the better players to ever play the game. He may not have all the rings to go with it, but statistically, he is, one of the best to ever do it. adding a key piece like that, I think, is going to help the Suns out immensely in terms of, making, a push, maybe even toward that number 1 seed by the playoffs. Kyrie Irving to the Mavs is also a big, it's a big move. The Mavs are a good team, but adding a piece like Kyrie, yeah, Kyrie is a little bit of a head case, but you can't deny that he's a good ball player. I think adding Kyrie can also, make a case for the Mavericks as well. So both of those are very, very big and key moves for this season in terms of the team's playoff future. I think both of those moves could very well, lead their teams into a deep push in the playoffs.
I think it's very evident that it's possible. The Suns' biggest problem is their health. Devin Booker goes down with injuries left and right. Chris Paul is getting older, and even when he was younger, he's always had some injury issues. And Kevin Durant, people don't talk about this, but Kevin Durant has only played it's been under 90 games since that big injury at Golden State. He has not. I don't know if it's very low numbers. Kevin Durant has not been fully healthy since Golden State, and he's still cooked. We've still seen him play really good. His foot was just barely on the line from going to the finals, or I don't remember if it was from winning the game or from going to overtime. I don't remember, but against the Bucks, he was this close to going to the finals, or at least having a shot to go into the finals against the Suns. And yes, that Nets team would have beat the Suns. That team almost had that. But other than that, Kevin Durant has not done anything other than hoop and put up major numbers. Kevin Durant has been injured and been a part of many lackluster Nets teams. They had one season where they looked like they could do it and they didn't. So I think that Kevin Durant has a lot to prove. And that whole team has a lot to prove. And the proving is that they can prove that they can stay healthy, because right now, I don't know. We haven't seen that. That's been their biggest issue, was health. Even in the finals against the Bucks, that's the reason they lost. Health. So it's been a problem, but if that team can stay healthy, I think that they're either going to be a team that goes far in the playoffs and makes a deep push, or they get bounced and they're that surprise bounce. I think that they can go either way, because we have seen that team choke. We've seen them choke against the Pelicans in the playoffs. We've seen them obviously choke, and actually really choke series-wise, against the Mavs. So the Suns team is good, but we've seen them, even when they are healthy, not get it done overall. So adding KD, obviously that big man who can shoot and who can do pretty much anything, is big, but he's not even in currently. He's out still. So it's a good move for the Suns, and I think long term it will pay off. But when we talk about the Kyrie trade, I was really hoping he'd be a Laker, as you can probably imagine. That's what I was going for. I talked about it in Purple and Gold Zone episode 8. I was like, oh, we're getting him, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 days later, he's a Mav. So not quite on that one. But honestly, I think that that's either going to be his long-term home and Dallas builds up a squad, or it's going to be temporary and we see him on the Suns. There's a talk that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving still want to play together, just not in Brooklyn, which is fair. And there's a rumor that the other place that they are talking about and have been talking about is the Suns, and that this is not something that was just happened. This has been premeditated. This has been something they have talked about privately. I'm sure it is. So many things happen privately, and a lot of it should stay private. Obviously, they should have their private lives and their private business to discuss and take care of. But I believe that they want to play together again. Will that be on the Suns? I don't know. It's not going to be on the Mavericks. It's going to be on the Suns. There used to be talk about Kevin Durant to the Mavericks and how that would be crazy with Luka, and I agree, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen, if anything, if they reunite, it's going to be on the Suns, and maybe we see a deal with maybe Chris Paul goes to the Mavs. Maybe, I don't know. I think we will see them together again, potentially. But if not, the other alternative is we see them build that team around Kyrie, and we see Dallas really make a push. And I think that's also very possible. I think Kyrie's probably trying to see how this season goes with the Mavs. I think if they have a successful season and they make it past the first round, I think he'll stay. But if they get bounced in the first, I think we could see Kyrie end up on the Suns, or at least him and Kevin Durant playing together again. But those are big moves, lots of big moves. Obviously, teams are juicing up. But speaking of NBA moments that have been big, this happened. This is not trade deadline news. This is actually record-breaking news. Last week, LeBron James broke the all-time scoring record against the Oklahoma City Thunder in a loss, which I'm not happy about. That part makes me mad. I was really upset that they lost that game. But if you want to hear me rant about that for like an hour, I did that on my show, Purple and Gold Zone. So you can definitely find that there if you want to, if the listeners want to see that, because I talked about that plenty on that show. But no. So my question to you. Obviously, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there. I honestly did not know if we would see him. He did not seem very happy. There's a lot of memes of him on the internet right now, and he did not look very happy to be there, but it could have just been, I don't know. You don't see him at a lot of public events anyway. You don't see him at any Laker games. So maybe it was just he maybe felt out of his element a little bit. I'm not sure. It just he didn't look super happy. But what are your thoughts on this record? What does this mean to the league? What does this mean more? What does this mean for LeBron? Does this make his case for being called the GOAT? Does it make it a better case? Does it strengthen that case? Or does it not really make a difference? What are your thoughts on LeBron James breaking that record?
I think it was really cool that he broke the record, but I don't know if it really adds anything to the GOAT conversation. And that may be a hot take to a lot of people. In my honest opinion, yeah, breaking the scoring record is great and all. It would have been more impressive if he would have done it with one team. If he would have done it with the Heat, or if he would have done it with the Cavaliers, his entire career, or the Lakers, for that matter, his entire career. He bounced around quite a bit. He started out in the NBA with the Cavaliers, then he got moved to the Heat, won a couple of championships with the Heat, and then he went back to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Won a ring with the Cavaliers then, and then now he's with the Lakers and won a ring there. So he's bounced around quite a bit. Does it, help his case a little bit in terms of being called the GOAT? Yes. But I don't think it solidifies him as being the GOAT. I'm not denying he's one of the better players to play in the game all time. Obviously, he has the most points scored among any player in the NBA at this point. I think in large part due to his longevity. Like, he stays healthy. You rarely see him hurt. And that's what makes him so great. Is because he is out on the floor all the time. What are your thoughts? Like, I'm sure, you hearing me, saying it doesn't help solidify it. It's a little bit of a hot take.
I agree with you. I honestly, I was hoping you would say that. That's something that we have always agreed on. We haven't talked about the GOAT conversation too much, but when we have discussed it a little bit, LeBron has to do more than just break the scoring record. Now, it strengthens it, but he has to win 6 championships at least. His finals record will never be better than Michael Jordan's. Obviously, he screwed that up after he lost his first one because Michael Jordan was perfect in the finals. Michael Jordan never lost in the finals, but you can also make the case that Michael Jordan definitely did also have way better teams around him consistently throughout his career. Some of those teams LeBron took to the finals, I mean, come on now, especially those not those Heat teams. There's no excuse for those Heat losses, but those Cav teams, there's a couple of those losses where it's like, those teams stayed together after LeBron left and they did not win more than like 20 or 30 games. So that just goes and shows what LeBron did and how much he put into those games and those series. So I think LeBron has to win 6. I don't think LeBron will win 6. I think LeBron will win one more. I do predict him winning one more. I don't know if it's going to be in the purple and gold. I want it to be in the purple and gold, but I'm also not entirely sure if that's going to be what happens. I think that it's very up in the air, and I think it's up in the air for everybody. I think that he isn't entirely sure if he wants to stay there long term because of how everything's been, and I don't know if the front office for the Lakers are fully sure. So it's kind of up in the air, but still a really cool moment. Now, what I didn't like was that it came in a loss.
Yeah.
I didn't like that it came in the loss, and I didn't like that he broke it in the third and then was like done. And we were in the middle of a game that we needed to win when we're trying to get just to 500. Like we're just trying to get to 500. And I get he broke the record, he's emotional. And again, I mean a moment like that, a record that will probably never be broken or at least not for a long time. I get like I can't really imagine the emotions that would be, so I'm not even going to sit here and be like I can't believe like maybe he really couldn't mentally lock back in, but after he broke the record, that was it. And then we go to the fourth and we lose. Now we only lost by 3. We fought because we were down. We only lost by 3, but again, I mean, we're no closer to 500 now. So I didn't like that it came in a loss. That kind of dampened the occasion for me and made it even less like impressive and enjoyable. But still a cool moment for him. And that was cool that it was purple and gold. And it's cool that the top 2 scorers in history are Lakers, and it's cool that I believe Kobe's in the top 5. So the top there's 3 of the top 5 are Los Angeles Lakers. That's super. That's really special. You don't really. I think Kobe's 4th or 5th now. I don't know. He'd be 4th or 5th now behind LeBron, I believe. But I just think that that is a really cool moment, and that's super meaningful. But I also agree with you that it'd be bigger if he'd done it for one team, because Kobe did it all for one team. Kareem did it for 2 teams, but he really did it for one team. That stint with the Bucks was not super long-winded, so
No.
it's definitely different. And if LeBron had gone from the Cavs to another team and stayed with them, then it'd be a similar situation to Kareem. But he's bounced around and he's gone to the same team twice, so it's not. And again, I could see him going back to the Cavs even in the future potentially as like a return. So you could see him go to the same team a third time, which Jordan would never do that. I'm just gonna say that. I mean, maybe he would do that, but he never left his team and went back. Like he stayed. So yeah, I don't know. The GOAT conversation as the show progresses and as he progresses, it'll be a conversation to talk about. But as of now, he's maybe made his case a little bit better, but he hasn't made it much better. And the fact that that came in a loss and that the Lakers are not that good of a team this season, it kind of makes it less of a big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we both agree there. Um, Obviously, on your part, it was really cool seeing him break it in the purple and gold, albeit it was in a loss, a game that the Lakers, I think at this point, had to win because they are not sitting very pretty in the standings right now.
Not going to get to 500 before All-Star break,
No,
unfortunately.
which is kind of crazy. Um, yeah, I'm not denying he was a great player, but yeah, he needs to do more than just break the scoring record. He needs to break the assist record. He needs to do a bunch of other things for me to solidify him as the greatest of all time. And I don't think he's going to do everything that we're saying that he needs to do.
If he breaks the assist record, he would absolutely be the GOAT, because that is another record that people don't think will ever get broken. I think that his highest he'll end up at is 3rd. I don't know if he'll go past 3rd on the assist record board, but I mean, the fact that he is in so many of these record top 5s and top 10s and I mean, that in and of itself is great. But again, it's not really big enough to solidify that, but still a big moment. But moving on, our final topic of the day, we have a little bit of Husker football to talk about. Not a lot, but going into Husker football, take it away, man. We've got a couple of high points to talk about, some exciting things to look forward to as a Husker fan.
Yeah, so both things are kind of on the recruiting front. Dylan Raiola, obviously, he is the number 1 overall recruit in the 2024 class. He has this official visit slated in Lincoln here in March, which I think is huge. Obviously, there were talks about him, wanting to go to Georgia, but their offensive coordinator is leaving. So that kind of puts Dylan Raiola in a little bit of a tough spot. Them losing their OC, I think adds a little bit more fire to, him coming to Nebraska. Speaking that his dad played for Nebraska, his uncle currently coaches there. There's a big family connection in Lincoln. Nebraska did what no other team has done in terms of his recruitment. They sent 9 coaches to go visit him in Arizona, which is unreal. They want this kid. And I'm sure after his visit in Lincoln here in March, I wouldn't be shocked within a week or so if we hear something about his commitment.
I think it's going to be a lock almost. I'm not going to say it's going to be a lock, but the guys pulled up and the coach is like, this is what this should be. And this is why Rule's such a good coach. And this is why this team is going to be so great, because this is not Scott Frost's, I'm going to say, lazy recruiting. I'm sorry. Yes, he got some talent, but it was just never, it didn't seem personal. And the fact that, Rule and these guys are being extremely personal and trying to go get these stars and these top tier talents, it shows that they're really trying to actually make this Nebraska team great now, not in 6, 7, 8 years. No, let's get back to top 25 now, not later. Yes, you can't, jump the gun and say we're going to win this many games. I'm not going to do that, but you can say this is a team that is going to be built correctly and that we're going to see success within the next few years, not 6, 7, 8. Within the next 3 years, we're going to be in the top 25 without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree. And, if we pick up the number 1 overall recruit in high school for this next class, like I've said in the past, watch out, because the recruiting floodgates are really going to open, because, recruits are going to want to play for the top, quarterback in the class. And Nebraska, if they can develop these kids, they can get right back up to the top of the pedestal. They can recruit up with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, and the Big Ten, and put themselves in a spot to where not only are they playing for a conference championship, but they could be also playing for a playoff berth. And I think Matt Rule is going to get Nebraska to that point. Matt Rule is a no-nonsense type of guy. He is a family guy. He wants to build like a family atmosphere in that locker room. Get everybody playing for one another. Wants them all to be on the same page. If you're not on the same page, get out. We need people in there that are on the same page. And I think that coaching staff is on the same page. I think they're doing a good job in terms of getting the players on the same page. Things are looking good. They pulled in 40 new players this past recruiting class. 40. That's about half of the active roster. They got over 100 guys on the roster now and on scholarship. But obviously they're going to have to probably pull some of those scholarships to get them down to the allotted 85 scholarship players. But Nebraska has this thing, called the 1890 Initiative, which is their NIL. Name, image, likeness will help pay for these kids' schools. So it's not like, they get pulled their scholarship and they're left out in the dust. No, Nebraska is one of the best in the game when it comes to name, image, and likeness. Which is why Nebraska is in the running for some of these top recruits in the country. Another one, Aaron Hampton, a 4-star wide receiver from Dangerfield, Texas. Again, another Texas guy. Nebraska pulled in quite a few Texas guys in this last class. So Nebraska is trying to rebuild that connection. He is a top 60 recruit in the country, borderline 5-star wide receiver. Has a top 7 of Alabama, Texas, Oregon, Nebraska, LSU, and Michigan. Some of the top dogs in the sport right now. And Nebraska finds themselves in it, and Nebraska hasn't sniffed being a top dog in a while.
It's been way too long. It's been way too long. I mean, it's honestly like, yeah, we were kind of up there when we had Pelini, but even then we were not a top dog. We have not been a top dog in years. It's been over 20 years since I can say we have been one of the top dogs in college football. We were closer, early 2000s and even mid 2000s, but not really as close as I think we can get here. So I think that this is a great sign and it's exciting. I wish I wasn't all the way in Hawaii. Now the Huskers are getting great and I'm out here in Hawaii. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but maybe I'll have to try to fly to a game this next season.
Heck yeah, man. We'll have to definitely link up because I'm probably going to try and make all the home games this year.
Hey, we'll make it happen, man. We'll plan on that for sure. That'd be a good time for sure. But no, I think it's going to be, and I think a trip like that though would be worth it. I think this is going to be a team that making a trip like that would be worth it for, because I think even this next season, I don't think we're going to see them make a huge push this next season. Now, I think it'll be a way bigger push than they have, but I don't think we're going to see them, make the college football playoffs or anything like that. But I do think that they will be a real talent. I think they'll be top 25. They definitely have the possibility of being around that 20 to 25 mark by the end of the season.
I agree with the latter part, but I'm also going to leave it out on this. TCU. Do I need to mention TCU? First-year head coach leads the TCU Horned Frogs to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they had a 40th ranked recruiting class. 40th. That just goes to show if you develop these players, you can get anywhere you want to go. And Nebraska has more talent than that TCU squad.
That is true. That's facts.
So again, we'll see. It's an exciting time in Lincoln. Obviously we got spring ball here coming up in April, here in just a couple of months, which I cannot wait. I'm going to be going to it. So we'll have a lot more to talk about when it comes to, Husker football. There's obviously going to be a lot, especially if Dylan Raiola commits. We get a big receiver commit in Aaron Hampton. There could be a few other big bombshell recruits that, commit to Nebraska here this spring and summer for next year. So again, we'll keep you guys in the loop on things. Again, as always, we appreciate you all for listening, and we will talk to you guys later.